Yes, gentlemen, Rodriguez Zapatero's daughters created an app to get rid of the opposition. How many were arrested, tortured, or maybe even killed because of them? In other words, they created a disinformation farm and a place where snitches could point out opposition members.
So you're saying that it's been possible to verify transfers between Zapatero's accounts from the bailout money? I mean, I think with that statement alone, if that's proven, Zapatero not only won't avoid trial, he won't avoid conviction.
What's happening in Spain, I'm sorry to say it, but I've said it before and people always say, oh, you're exaggerating, oh, you're crazy. That was second by second. What happened in Cuba is happening in Spain at an incredible speed because Sanchez isn't copying the copy. I mean, Venezuela. Sanchez, his first trip was to Cuba to receive what? Instructions? And he came back with the idea of what he had to do, destroy Spain.
They're a gang of mediocrities, illiterates, intellectual paupers. And from there, nothing can be built because they don't have the ability. Of course, an idiot who gets his daughters involved in setting up a company to divert commissions and as a result gets them into serious criminal trouble. Because look, even if he could lie and get away with the jewelry thing, his daughters won't be able to prove that they got a ridiculous amount of money for formatting some reports for their dad, which, by the way, he said he did verbally. Maybe they did orthodontics because I don't know how you can format a verbal report.
Look, I also got a message from Cuba because they were sending me information and I said, I can't right now because I'm with Albert Castillon. He says, Albert Castillon, the only thing you can see.
How wonderful, honestly.
People who don't have electricity or light, the only thing they see is Albert Castillon. And that's where I tell you,
It's not. Confidencial Castillon by Albert Castillon.
My insurance sponsors the editorial of Confidential Castillon.
Welcome, how are you, Confidentials? How are you doing? Thank you for being there. I know it's not easy to watch this channel that stops, that rewinds the recording, that interrupts, that doesn't notify you when something is published. This is an uncomfortable channel that tries to wake up a lot of people. Therefore, they want you drowsy, lethargic, and with no interest in getting informed. Thank you, because those who make the effort to watch us and spread what we say here every day are helping the freedom and the future of the rule of law in Spain and also in other countries. Thank you, because this is much more than just a digital news outlet or a podcast or a show. This is a wall, a trench that defends states of individual freedom and the rule of law, of democracy and constitution, which others trample on. We're going to keep going here. The information we're going to give you today explains very well who Alba and Laura Rodriguez Espinosa are, the daughters of Zapatero. As you know, yesterday they were indicted. It was to be expected. Everyone knew it would happen for involvement in a criminal organization, influence peddling, and money laundering. Crimes that, if they are ultimately found guilty, would add up to more than 10 years in prison. They could go to jail. That possibility exists. Although you and I, if you live in Spain, know perfectly well that in Spain there is one justice for the people, for you, for me, and another for them, for the elite. Politicians pardon themselves. They have different judges to be tried by, right? Because they can't be judged like the common people. They go in official cars and with helicopters and bodyguards to testify. They are from another world. Here we're going to try to bring that to an end as soon as possible, but let's get back to Alba and Laura Rodriguez Espinosa. Who are these girls? Alba is now 31 years old. She's the youngest. Laura, 33, is the oldest. And in fact, Zapatero and Sonsoles, their parents, guarded their privacy closely during the time he was in Moncloa as Prime Minister. They studied in private schools, sometime in a public one, and then everything fell apart. With this photo that the White House published, they visited the White House and Obama published that horrifying photo. They looked like the monsters, gothic girls, a family dressed in black, underage kids, not very attractive. Well, they didn't like this photo either. When the Prime Minister's office at Moncloa found out it had been posted, they called the White House right away to have it taken down from their website. And it was only up on that website for an hour and a half, enough for it to go down in history. Years went by. Zapatero left Moncloa because Sonsoles, his wife, couldn't stand living there. She said that if he did one more term, she would leave. And Laura, the oldest, took a course to become an audiovisual project technician. And Alba graduated in audiovisual communication and performing arts. Alba wants to be an actress and recently uploaded this on YouTube. She left me. Run!
Oh, do you want to sit down? Go ahead, come, sit down. Yes, of course, sit down.
Yes, sit down. Why not? Can you sit down? Yes. Yes, sit with me. Can you sit down?
Aren't you going to sit down? Yes.
The truth is that despite both of their efforts, nothing was going well for them. And in 2019, they founded an advertising agency. First, one of them started, then it was Laura, and then Alba joined. It's called What the Fab, which is the favorite. You're looking at the facade. At first, it was aimed at the video game sector. And well, it tried to make it, but it wasn't very successful. Look, the agency started operating in the summer of 2019. Well, in the first months of 2020, Dad comes to the rescue. And he lands them a first contract with Huawei, the Chinese government's world-leading telecom company. Now that's a big deal. A 15-page contract all in English. The UDEF found it during the search of their office, and it doesn't make clear how many payments there are. But it's clear that the father's influence is obvious. Since Huawei signed this contract with Zapatero's daughters, Sanchez has doubled the permits granted to Huawei by the Spanish government. But pay attention, because Laura and Alba didn't just work for Huawei. In the UDEF records in their office, they found contracts under the heading Blue Gold. What is Blue Gold? That's what they call coltan, that very important material, because it's used in all mobile phones and computers. Nowadays, it's a highly sought-after mineral. By the way, it's found in the Orinoco region in Venezuela. In fact, in January 2024, Zapatero's daughters opened an office in Caracas. What could be better than receiving help from the government of Nicolas Maduro, the friend of Dad, from Delcy Rodriguez, Diosdado Cabello, and the whole narco-terrorist mafia? And they make deals with that government. And this is probably the worst part of all. One of Maduro's businessmen gave him 100,000 euros to empower himself, to create an app. It's called Benven app. They're looking at the contract, how that first payment of a little over 100,000 euros was finalized for both of them. Officially, it's an app for video games for young people from Venezuela to communicate. The reality is, it's a spying center in the hands of Maduro's government to target opponents. What I'm telling you is, this app from Zapatero's daughters encouraged government supporters to point out, photograph, and report where people opposed to the Chavista regime were. Maduro and Diosdado Cabello expanded that app, making it even more effective, more savage, more criminal, and they put it in the hands of the military bases, armed forces, militias. Maduro himself announced it as a great success.
So then the Bena system, the 1 for 10, The VENAP must proceed together with the Bolivarian National Armed Forces immediately, along with the communal militia units and the grassroots bases of integral defense. The National Territorial Defense System must proceed to create an application in the VENAP system so that the people can safely report through VENAP. The defense system must proceed to apply everything it sees, everything it hears. The system must proceed to create an application, the VENAP.
Yes, gentlemen, the daughters of Rodriguez Zapatero created an app to put an end to the opposition. How many were arrested, tortured, or maybe even killed because of them? The situation was so serious that Amnesty International filed a complaint. Both Google Play and the App Store, the stores where you can download the app, removed this app. What permissions? Although for those who already have it downloaded on their phone, it still works. In other words, they created a disinformation farm and a place where informants could identify opposition supporters. When the United States extracts and detains Maduro, the business of Zapatero's daughters in Caracas is shut down, even the website. But they supposedly kept laundering money, which is what they're accused of thanks to their father. It is estimated that more than €1 million from companies in the Plus Ultra network ended up being paid to Laura and Alba for supposed work that the judge believes was never actually done. AI clips, poorly made and uninteresting, were paid for at a premium price. And pay attention, they found in the records a document indicating that Alba and Laura were going after Nicaragua, yes, after the World Food Program in Nicaragua. Just like the CLAP program made Alex Saab rich, and who knows, maybe Zapatero and others too, pretending to help the people while giving them expired food and keeping the difference in offshore accounts. It seems that in Nicaragua, Zapatero's daughters were on their way to doing the same thing. They are young, in their 30s, and rich. Alba has bought a house in Madrid, valued at €300,000. Last year and the year before, Laura bought an apartment for $700,000. Both of them very close to one of Dad's houses, the one in Puerta de Hierro in the Valdezarza neighborhood in Madrid. And they tell me something more. Zapatero shouldn't complain about his daughters being charged with such serious crimes. He got them into this mess and they let it happen. And they tell me that the important package of money, the bulk of the money earned by Zapatero, I assure you that what they found, the properties he owns, are just the tip of the iceberg. We're talking about hundreds of millions, if not thousands. The alleged commissions of Zapatero were impressive. All right, well, I'm told that the bulk of it was left in a safe place under their names, under Laura and Alba's names. By the way, it seems that the United States may have found or is about to locate that treasure. We'll see if he tells Judge Calama or not, or if he waits for Zapatero to be tried in his own country. Gentlemen, don't feel sorry for Laura and Alba. The entire state is here to support them. The Attorney General will prevent the prosecution from being too harsh with its accusation. The State Attorney's Office will work as the defense attorney. They always do that. And if in the end the judge is stubborn and convicts them, there's always the pardon from Sanchez or Candido with de Pumpido in the Constitutional Court to get them out of any legal trouble they have. We are not all equal before the law, and with the government that has been in Spain for 8 years, even less so. We are facing a caste, an elite that has its own rules, and they protect each other. They especially protect their offspring. Welcome, we investigate.
The Miss Seguros app has sponsored the editorial of Castillon Confidential. Download Miss Seguros, the easiest and fastest way to manage all your insurance in one place.
When you ride an electric scooter, the last thing you want is to carry around paperwork. Your insurance, always at hand, digital, organized, and ready when you need it.
subscribe.
Castillon Confidential by Albert Castillon.
Friends, some audio recordings have been released from the 3 hours that Zapatero spent answering Judge Calama. I don't think what they say is important, which you're about to hear, but the tone is... What matters is the relationship that Judge Calama has with the defendant Zapatero, who is charged with 7 crimes. Yesterday, we started to suspect there was special treatment. And not just for letting him enter through the authorities' entrance, but for not even taking away his passport. When we believe there was an attempted escape on May 19th, please listen and form your own opinion. Judge Calama, for example, asks him if he has traveled with executives from Plus Ultra Venezuela.
Look, regarding Plus Ultra, have you ever traveled to Venezuela with executives from Plus Ultra?
No, never.
Have you ever flown with Plus Ultra?
I've already said it, yes.
Did you intervene on behalf of Plus Ultra or in favor of Plus Ultra so that they would be granted permits in Venezuela without the Spanish embassy having to intervene?
No, not at all.
Curiously, Zapatero goes so far as to say always in that role as if he were speaking in the Congress of Deputies or before an institutional public statement, not before a judge. It always seems like he's playing a role. He comes up with one of those epic phrases that he likes so much. Remember that he spoke of a better world, of a paradise beyond the earthly one. He's mystical, even cryptic when he feels like it. Listen.
That is to say, I have not exercised absolutely any influence in the rescue of Plus Ultra, and all my professional activity has been in accordance with the law. I didn't speak. Not only did I not influence or show any interest, I didn't speak with any political authority, with any official, with any public employee about the rescue of Plus Ultra. And therefore I believe that influence has to be on someone, with whom, where, and how.
There are 2 Zapateros. One, the businessman, the middleman, the one who travels to China, Maduro's friend, the one who could have a gold mine in Venezuela, the one who charges the families of political prisoners to get them out of prison. And then there's another one, the one you're listening to, the politician. He never stopped acting like a prisoner. The one from the government during the time he was with Calama knew that was his strength, saying things like this.
Relevant analysis. He hires me to write reports.
Sorry, it seems obvious, General Ones.
You don't,
You don't hire anyone if it's relevant, since you agree and handle the consulate's work.
Yes, it seems obvious that it's an absolutely logical and normal process. That I write reports for a consulting firm, and that the consulting firm...
Get used to the fact that when I speak, you have to be quiet and not of course. It's a matter of order in the statement. Yes, the matter seems very simple to me. That is, Analysis Relevante gives you some assignments that you accept, and you send those works back to Analysis Relevante. Obviously, and prior to all that, there are clients of Analysis Relevante who request reports, which Analysis Relevante then assigns to you. Somewhat true.
I've already answered that, yes.
Yes, but that's just it, Mr. Zapatero. I don't doubt that. But you have to understand that I'm not a mother superior. I'm an investigating judge, and I often have to be thorough to clarify things. And obviously, I am protected by the presumption of innocence. Absolutely.
Absolutely, that's right.
So, an important topic. When you are given the assignment by Analysis Relevante, you interact with the clients of Analysis Relevante, you meet with them.
Look, with almost all of them, yes. Yes, I've interacted with almost all of them. Well, with almost all of them, but that's basically everyone, right? With almost all of them?
Yes, and with whom not?
I have hardly interacted with Plus Ultra.
And have you interacted with the rest? Why not with Plus Ultra?
Well, because with Plus Ultra, the interaction was basically handled by Julio Martinez, who, I think, established a relationship of a different nature. But there's no one else. Notice that I mentioned to you that the only time I've had a meeting was a lunch. With the president of Plus Ultra, Julio Martinez Sola, and with Julio Martinez was in 2024.
You already know that Coldo Garcia, Abalos, and others deny what he says and that the evidence confirms it. Of course, he did everything to secure the bailout of Plus Ultra, and he met with everyone and pressured everyone. And Coldo Garcia was at the office door while he kept pressing Sanchez to reach that agreement. He lies, and he lies in everything he says. And maybe the main thing about these case files and studies is not what Zapatero says. Zapatero doesn't drop his act as an honest former president as the guiding light of the PSOE. No. He is, as always, calm. He knows there's no danger. With Calama, everything is under control. Notice that the only moment when he says, "I'm the one speaking here," is the one you're about to hear. But a few seconds later, Judge Calama, after putting him in his place, justifies himself and says a phrase that I find pathetic. It's just that I have to be incisive. What do you mean you have to be incisive? Please listen.
You have to understand that I'm not a mother superior, but an investigating judge. And I often have to be incisive to clarify things. And obviously,
without presumption, it protects me.
Gentleman, Zapatero was very calm during the statement with Calama because it was damage control, because he knew he wasn't going to bite, that he wasn't going to be too incisive, because he was in control of the situation at all times. He was right at home, calm, serene, calm, even interrupting the judge, telling the judge he was wrong. Zapatero in Spain, after hearing this, forgive me, but I think he will never be judged fairly. We continue to trust, remember, that the United States will do its job because Spanish justice gives us the impression that it allows itself to be dominated by pressure. An official car, some bodyguards, and a former political official. It's not what we would have liked to hear. It's not possible that we, the press, are more incisive than a judge. Something's wrong, or something's been arranged. Miguel Ángel Pérez will tell us more in a minute. Castillón Confidencial by Albert Castillón. Gentlemen, after the statement, actually I would almost say not even a statement by Zapatero to the judge without even responding to the prosecutor, which is very serious because a high-ranking official of the state, like a former president, should have more respect for the institutions. But we are all left with a very bitter feeling that they don't even take away his passport, that they let him leave in his official car to his house bought who knows with what money. No, we must not let our guard down. This is a mid or long-term race. And our guest tells me that Judge Calama is clear about what he did. In that ruling where he rejects precautionary measures, he also points out that Zapatero has not proven that what the UDEF investigated is false. In fact, they haven't dropped a single one of the 7 charges he's accused of. Miguel Ángel Pérez, Precautionary Measures, Libertad Digital. How are you, my friend? How's it going?
Albert, always glad to be with you.
You were there. You saw Zapatero's smile at the entrance. Amazing. What an ironic smile, right?
Yes, despite the insults he received, honestly, his Bambi smile was pretty surreal, wasn't it? Like back when they used to call him Bambi. Well, Bambi isn't much of a Bambi anymore.
Well, then he left through the back door with his head down. So has Zapatero convinced Judge Calama?
Not at all, Albert. I think in the end, what we really need to take away from everything that happened in that statement is what Calama says in that order. It's true that we all expected the judge to impose some kind of pretrial restriction against Zapatero. I knew it wasn't going to be pretrial detention, but at least maybe a passport withdrawal, a ban on leaving the country, or even having to appear in court every week or every 2 weeks. In the end, Judge Calama decided there was no reason for it because he's a public figure. It would be hard for him to escape justice. And also because the investigation is very advanced and Zapatero, even if he wanted to destroy evidence, wouldn't be able to, right? It's true that we all expected some pretrial restriction, but he didn't impose any. But beyond those pretrial restrictions, which is the short term, I think we need to look at the medium term. And in the medium term, in Judge Calama's ruling, I think it's devastating because what he says is that after Zapatero's 2.5 hour statement, he wasn't able to refute any of the accusations against him. I mean, to me, this is devastating. Judge Calama is saying that none of the 7 possible crimes, including embezzlement, have been disproven. Also, regarding what Zapatero has been charged with, we're talking about more than half a dozen crimes, which is no small thing, and none of them have been convincingly explained by Zapatero. And to me, that seems very conclusive and very devastating that Zapatero is going to have a very, very hard time avoiding standing trial. Because, of course, when a judge, when he was...
Who was there, for example, the Popular Party acting as a private prosecutor? Are they telling us that he thought it was a rally, that he was making some political speeches that the judge wasn't interested in at all, and that the judge had to stop him at some point? For example, explaining his agreements with the government of Venezuela. The judge says, "What are you telling me? No, I didn't invite you for this." Was he a bit mistaken, or does he get into the decisive matter, ZP, and not get out of it?
Look, Albert, I think he doesn't have much of an alternative. I mean, the UDEF, the Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, and Judge Calama have caught him red-handed. So Zapatero has a very hard time defending himself. Because on top of that, he has hired a lawyer who, as everyone already knows, is a procedural specialist, not an expert in criminal law. And their strategy is going to focus on trying to find procedural or formal defects to try to nullify evidence or try to annul the proceedings. But of course, when it comes to direct confrontation in defending against each of the accusations, each of the criminal indications against him, Zapatero has no explanations. Other than denying everything like Abalos and Coldo did back in the day, we can already see where Abalos and Coldo ended up. So that has been Zapatero's strategy because he doesn't have any other. And regarding the issue of the jewelry, well, look, he simply didn't want to say a word, right? Now they're starting to leak in pro-government media that the jewelry was given to him by King Fahd in 2007 and therefore it's already expired, etc. He doesn't have any proof to show anything, Zapatero, and that's why his lawyer told him, "You stay quiet, let's try to buy some time, and about the jewelry, let them summon you later, and for now, don't say a word." I think Zapatero has it extremely tough, and his defense is extremely tough, and there are criminal indications that will become very strong evidence against Zapatero.
You know the anger, and I'm sure you feel it just like I do, because of who he is. They don't treat him like any other Spaniard, not when he comes in, not when he leaves, not in how they treat him, not in the precautionary measures. If this happened to you, to me, or to Coldo, we'd end up in jail. But not him. That's how it is.
Well, I actually agree in the sense of, for example, the security issue, right? It's just that for security reasons, he avoids the perp walk. Zapatero avoided the perp walk. Begoña Gomez avoided it. Mariano Rajoy did too back in the day. But Infanta Cristina did have to do the perp walk. And for Infanta Cristina, there were no security reasons to avoid the perp walk. I just don't get it. For some, there are security reasons, and for others, there aren't. And then regarding the pretrial restrictions, of course, one of the most controversial arguments the judge brings up is that since he's so well known, it would be hard for him to escape, right? And evade justice. Exactly. That comes precisely from the fact that he's Zapatero. If it were someone other than Zapatero, most likely they would have been held in pretrial detention because we're talking about 7 very serious crimes, including criminal organization. I mean, also, according to the UDEF and the investigation, it's not just that he was part of that criminal organization, which is already serious. It's that he's the leader of the criminal organization.
There are documents. For example, how can he deny that a Chinese government company, like all companies, sends him a letter addressed to him, Mr. President, Mr. Zapatero, to ask him for business and oil from Venezuela? There are obvious things, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's another one of the most controversial aspects, right? That no pretrial restrictions have been imposed precisely because of Zapatero's connections with countries like Venezuela or China, right? Countries he might try to flee to at some point or whatever. And then I also think there's a direct statement in Calama's ruling that I find devastating. And that's when it says that the investigation has proven the traceability of transfers between the bank accounts of Jose Luis Rodriguez Zapatero about amounts from the bailout by Pedro Sanchez's government to Plus Ultra. I think that statement is devastating. In other words, it's saying that they have been able to prove transfers between Zapatero's accounts from the bailout money. I mean, I think with that statement alone, if that's proven, it's not just that Zapatero won't avoid trial, he won't avoid conviction either.
Well, there's one of those many companies they created for the scheme, Prospectiva Intelligence. They all have names like that: Relevant Analysis, Prospectiva Intelligence. Then just to end up messing around for a quick buck, right? But anyway, according to the judge's report, the company barely had any income. And from 2020 to 2025, when the bailout happened, almost 3 million euros. This is a huge score.
Yeah. And it was also really surprising to see the explanation Zapatero gave when he was asked specifically about the high cost of those reports, about what he was getting paid, right? And one of the excuses Zapatero gave was that these were reports about geopolitics, about geostrategy. Well, no matter how much geopolitics is involved, anyway, we already know what these reports are. They're always advisory roles within the framework of corruption schemes. We know they're just alibis to cover up illegal commissions, period. I mean, there's no real advising, no geopolitics, no geostrategy. So there are kickbacks disguised as reports and supposed advisory services.
And is it true that you said those geopolitics reports were handwritten by Boli?
Well, I didn't hear about that detail, but anyway, I also think it's very important to bring up another point, and that's that Zapatero didn't want to go after Julito Martinez. We all know that Julito Martinez knows absolutely everything. And precisely the defense of Julio Martinez, which is now led by Maria Dolores Marquez de Prado, was waiting to see what Zapatero's strategy would be regarding Julito. To see if they would start singing like a canary and pull an aldama, right? Because, of course, what Julito was going to allow was for Zapatero to pin all the blame on him. But there, Zapatero was smart and didn't want to put all the blame on Julito because otherwise he knew that would be a bad plan for him.
Well, we'll see. They tell me Julito is really upset. He's no Aldama. Psychologically, he's more affected, he's weaker, and maybe he'll break down and tell everything. And if he tells everything about him, he'll tell everything about Zapatero. We'll see. I trust he'll spill the beans because that's what I think. They tell me it's a family. Javier Perez Roldan told me that they have money, that they don't need these shady deals. It's not Coldo Escoldo, Abalos, and therefore, if it's a family with means, what they want is to clear their name. Well, then let them start by telling everything. That's it. Right? That would be wonderful. Absolutely. Dear friend, good luck. Today you're spared court. Get ready because next week you'll keep putting up with these corrupt people. A big hug, Miguel Angel. Thank you very much, Albert. A big hug. Castillon Confidencial by Albert Castillon. When my mother died,
I inherited her debts and I was left alone. Then COVID came and I went months without receiving a single euro. I even needed psychological help.
If you are in a situation of insolvency, contact us and we will tell you if you meet the requirements of the Second Chance Law. Sindeuda Group, your second chance.
Welcome to the world of Vichy Catalan, where authenticity and health go hand in hand. Here we know how to enjoy ourselves and also how to take care of ourselves. A place to make every moment unique and savor it intensely. We're waiting for you at the home of sparkling water, Vichy Catalan.
Friends, now that the weekend is coming, I recommend that besides watching our videos, you also check out the videos from a new channel that has just joined the family. This is my daughter's channel and I need your help. It's one scientific video after another that Iñaki and Tushen are in charge of editing, organizing, and creating with a lot of skill. Scientific videos on the channel Your Body Knows Two Things. Yen Tu Cuerpo Sabe 2.0. This is the latest one they've released, Unsettling.
There are people who have died from things that seem impossible. Not because of accidents, not because of violence, but because of things as simple as laughing, drinking water, or even sleeping. And the most disturbing thing is that in many of these cases, it wasn't the situation that killed the person. It was their own body. In 1975,
I don't want you to see it. I won't tell you more. Your Body Knows 2.0. Subscribe, like, and watch the videos. You'll like them. By the way, we're all keeping an eye on the mass case, the verdict against Coldo, Abalos, and Aldama, it seems we've been told. Thank you.
De salir, sino hoy, quizá el lunes, pero nos hablan de que Ábalos sería condenado
or 11 years in prison. The prosecution was asking for more than 20-odd years. For Coldo, 8 or 10, practically half of what the prosecution was asking for. And with these two, they reached an agreement unanimously, but not with Aldama. No, with Aldama, the discussion is Aldama. And some judges want to sentence him to more than 2 years in prison, in which case he would go to jail. And what they're telling me is that he will be sentenced to less than 2 years and won't go to prison. It's important. Do you know why? If Aldama avoids jail for cooperating, others may talk too, like Julito Martinez, Zapatero's alleged frontman, or maybe even Gertrudis. There are many who are waiting for the witness who cooperates, the criminal who cooperates, to be protected without being sent to prison. And if the anti-corruption prosecutor's office and the decent judges who are still left manage to do this, then we send a great message for justice to move forward. Carlos Marcos, welcome. How are you, analyst? How are you, my friend?
Good. Glad to be here. Very good, Albert. Very good, very good. Looking at this news that the magistrates gave us yesterday, not celebrating it, but analyzing it, of course.
Yes. Well, there are those who see the glass half full, half empty. Miguel Angel Perez just told us that Zapatero absolutely did not convince Judge Calama that the accusations are strong. The proof is the indictment of the secretary and her daughters yesterday afternoon, right?
Well, let's put things in order, because with all the mess that Sanchez's government has created, people are starting to get lost, right? First of all, they're not yet investigating the money that Zapatero might have received from Venezuela. No. Here, they're looking into actions related to the bailout of Plus Ultra, and a second issue regarding some gifts that Zapatero supposedly received from a now deceased Arab king. So let's go step by step. Regarding the Plus Ultra issue, yes. Well, Zapatero's war to try to prevent that phone legally cloned in the United States from coming to light in Spain, it's a clear reflection of the panic he feels. That we might find out the contents of his conversations with the top executive of Plus Ultra, who, by the way, is on the run from justice. It's just that here it's one criminal after another. And as for the jewelry, it's not just that he's a thief, which he is. Now they're deciding if he's a thief, even though the crime may have expired. But the judges and the tax inspectors aren't stupid. To prove that those jewels were given as gifts before 2007, the person who gave them would have to show up and say, yes, I gave them to her on this day at this time, and here's the certificate of acquisition for these jewels. That can't happen because that gentleman passed away. It's not enough to just say, I promised they were given to me in 2007. What you promised doesn't matter to me at all. You need to prove that you've had those since that date. And if you can't prove it, on top of many other things, you're also facing a very serious tax offense.
No doubt. Look at the messages that nobody wants anyone to see, and the judge already has them in his hands from the phone of Rodolfo Reyes, CEO of Plus Ultra. They said things like this with the president of Plus Ultra.
They will give a package for Julio Martinez, Zapatero, so we can take it on the flight on the 14th.
Julio was also with ZP today.
He told him that everything is going smoothly, and my namesake is grilling me. He wants money.
Sanchez was received like a hero at Moncloa. It's about aid.
We'll see if he's a hero for us.
All day long, it's a transcription interpreted by colleagues from Telemadrid. Let him say hello.
But careful, Albert. There's a very important sentence missing that's also in that message. When the man talks about bringing the little package on the plane, the other one says, the little package, and the other replies, the payment. Clear as day, man, it's obvious.
Yes. Careful, don't talk about white stuff, little packages, and Plus Ultra. Yeah, they brought that too. Careful, my dear friend.
What a country.
Let me greet a woman who is as grand as a cathedral and whom we love very much here. Zoe Valdez, dear, how are you?
Very well, thank you very much, Albert. Hello, Carlos. I love Carlos.
And I love Zoe and Carlos. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not at all. Waiting to make the leap to your country at any moment. Let's see when it happens. Any news or what?
Take me, for example. I've already had to postpone. I've even changed the ticket 3 times because I've been waiting, of course. But after what happened with Iran and after the movements that are being seen from here, well, I don't think it's not very promising for me what could happen. And that's where we are. We're always waiting.
Yes, but we were expecting something more, and we were expecting it days ago. You, me, and a lot of people. Also, they gave us the information near the White House, the presidential area. Yesterday, sources close to Washington told me that what happened is that Iran got out of their control. Things didn't turn out as they expected, and they had to put out the fire in Iran to go back to dealing with Cuba and Venezuela. I told them they'd better hurry up or they'll lose 2 more battles. Iran has ended up the way it has. The country is very weakened, but the murderers are still in power. This is unthinkable in Cuba, right? That they stay in power. Zoe.
Well, if you allow me, Iran hasn't come out weakened. I'm sorry. That's the view from the American government. It's not my view. Iran, the regime of the Ayatollahs, even if the Ayatollahs have been eliminated, they reproduce very quickly and they're still there. And the Iranian people have been forgotten. That's not what I want for Cuba. That's what could happen to Cuba. Besides, Israel has been taken out of the picture when it was Israel who brought down Khamenei. That wasn't the United States. Let's be here, not in the breadline. They haven't done this alone. This has been done with Israel and thanks to Israel. And you can't ignore Israel. You can't push Israel aside. Doing so is like what Trump said a few days ago, that if the Syrians were wonderful, this and that. Well, okay, but so what? And then what he said about Israel. I mean, you can't say that the Syrians are in a wonderful situation right now. And also, right after saying what was said about Israel, it's not fair. It's not safe for anyone. Because Israel is the international containment wall, the one against terrorism. That needs to be very clear. If Donald Trump doesn't have that clear, we're done for, really done for. That's on one hand. On the other hand, Iran, the Iranian people are in the same situation. No liberation has happened there. There has been collusion there, which is what almost always brings joy to the pockets of investors. But the problem is that democracy, freedom has nothing to do with it, not with the investors. And we agree that a country has to grow, but a country first has to be free in order to grow. That's not what I want for Cuba. And if that's the plan they have for Cuba, which is what we're seeing from here, I wrote an article, an eighth and final letter to Marco Rubio, published in Diario de las Americas. Today, since yesterday it's still there, well, it would be work that's being done in favor of the tyranny and what the tyranny wants, which is a job, a change, fraud, investments. Look at the 14 points they give him. I mean, more aid for Iran, for the regime. If that's what's going to be done with Cuba, this woman right here is not going to tolerate it. I'm not going to stay quiet.
Carlos, do they want to do in Cuba what they've done with Delcy Rodriguez in Venezuela? Because there was even a candidate, we already said it here, Raul Castro's grandson, but they haven't even put it into motion.
I don't know, Albert. You know I have a certain degree of disappointment with President Trump's timing. I celebrated the actions in Venezuela, and I had high expectations when things started in Cuba, but I see that time is passing. I want to think that after the failure in Iran, and I agree 100% with Zoe's words, a woman whose intellectual stature is beyond debate, it's not up for discussion, right? Her clarity is remarkable, and it's a pleasure to listen to her, because she says things very clearly. I hope that Trump, in the shadow of the failure he had in Iran, where I don't exactly know why he got involved, what he was doing there, what the objective was, and I do know that now he has to pay $300 billion as compensation to the Ayatollahs, because it's true that nothing has changed for the people. They are still subjected to the same theocratic dictatorship that oppresses women, punishes them, kills them, hangs homosexuals, that is to say. The disaster that was Iran is still the same. And don't try to sell me the success of opening the Strait of Hormuz. Damn, it was already open before, without war or anything. What kind of mess have they gotten themselves into? I hope that to cover up this blot, which is a blot on President Trump's record, he intervenes in Cuba as soon as possible to force democratic elections. Not to put a nephew or grandson of Fidel Castro in power, because that can't be a real transition. Cuba is a disaster, it's a failed state. And what it needs is for a group of experts to run the country until democratic elections are held. And in Venezuela, it's pretty much the same thing. What the hell are Delcy Rodriguez and her brother still doing running the country? If they're doing the shady things they used to do, they're still doing them boldly. And part of the oil pie goes to Trump. But that's not what the rest of the world expected after what happened there. Come on, for God's sake, don't insult our intelligence. President Trump, wake up. There are people here who support many of your decisions, but the ones we don't understand, we are not going to accept in any way.
At night and sometimes during the day, people in Cuba keep protesting. If we're desperate here because the days go by and nothing happens, just imagine over there where they get the same information we have here. Even if there's little electricity, it still reaches them. I talked to people who are in Cuba. I spoke with a former political prisoner 2 days ago. They're at their limit, they say, please. Whatever is going to happen, let it happen already. They don't want to endure one more day. Besides, it's not that complicated, Zoe. For the United States to intervene in Cuba isn't that hard, right? It's not Venezuela.
It's not that hard. They're just 90 miles away. And besides, in Trump's circle, they know Marco Rubio much better, of course, and I don't have to. He knows him perfectly. There are many people who know exactly what's happening. The exile community has rebuilt and built up Miami. And that exile has always informed every administration about what's happening in Cuba. And there's been a follow-up on that since the beginning. And so, look, that's not the problem, that they go out into the streets. But do you know what's the worst thing that's happening? The worst thing that's happening, look, yesterday a mother reported that her 2 children are dying. Both of her children are dying and she is too. She is witnessing this because she doesn't have the medicine for the girl who is diabetic. She doesn't have the medicine for the boy who has another illness. She doesn't have food to give those children. And she is watching that mother as her children are dying right in front of her eyes. And she's not the only one. Yesterday, another mother, I posted it on Twitter, came out to report how her son was killed, yet another one in prison. And she put up posters, and that mother is going to go to jail, not just for putting up a poster, but for speaking out in the street in Cuba for things like that. Jail. The girl, Ana Benzi, who is an influencer, she's brilliant, that girl, 21 years old. There, her mother is being accused, and it's from 5 to 10 years in prison for saying the name of the person who came to summon her for a meeting in Villa Marista with state security, where people are tortured. I mean, the problem is that we see all of this, but one day these people disappear into a prison and we forget about them. And they show up 10, 15, 20 years later, completely destroyed. They're lost souls. We can't go on like this in Cuba. We also can't keep building a fake opposition that goes on tours to Europe just to do nothing, just to react. The little money they know they receive, because that's the other problem. The other serious problem isn't just the regime, it's the opposition that's benefiting from this just to live better. In exile, that really infuriates me. I don't have another word for it, and I apologize.
There's a record number of political prisoners in Cuban jails, more than 1,200 right now. There are children, women, minors. If there's no food outside, just imagine how things are in prison. They send me photographs of prisoners just as they come out, and they're shocking. It looks like they're coming out of a concentration camp. We have to demand that the United States act quickly because the Cuban people are hungry, devastated, and morally exhausted. What especially embarrasses me here is that no one from the Spanish government supports them, Carlos. Quite the opposite. They have supported the opposition. The European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, Sanchez, they've all given money to Diaz-Canel, not to the Cuban people, and they continue to do so to this day. I no longer expect any gesture from any left-wing party. But it seems like Cuba doesn't exist, not even for the PP. It seems like they're not there. It seems like they don't even live. I don't hear a voice when they speak our language, and it was our land with the Spanish flag not so long ago.
Albert, let me tell you something. On my trips to Havana, I made 3 or 4 trips, I already told you, to see the remains of the hotel that belonged to my grandfather, the Puerto Tierra Hotel, which was expropriated back in the day. Now 20 families live there. Well, I used to hire someone from there who was like my driver, the one who took me around and brought me back, you know? And he was an extraordinary guy, an extraordinary Cuban who had his family there. He had thought about leaving Havana, but he wouldn't go because he wouldn't leave his grandmother, his parents, and his siblings behind. Well, I still keep in touch with this driver, you know? Yesterday, he told me the following. And this isn't made up. It's not made up. There's no need to add cyanide, as the prosecutor used to say. This is reality. They're boiling potato peels in water, the potato peels, to eat them cooked over a fire they make with logs, which they get by breaking up the furniture they have at home. That's the reality, far beyond political positions. So I told this man, I'm going to make a transfer. Give me a bank account number because you need help. And he said to me, don't send it by transfer, Mr. Carlos. Mr. Carlos, he calls me, don't send it by transfer. If someone you know came and brought it to me, yes. But if not, they have everything controlled, and in the end, it doesn't get to me. And we are allowing this with the silence of the world. Where the heck is the UN and all those institutions that we all pay for that don't help people who, in the 21st century, are being subjected to death, starvation, and dying of hunger by a bloody dictatorship? It's a real shame that infuriates anyone with feelings, with principles, and with any common sense. I don't know what they're thinking.
Father Alberto Reyes is our friend. We've interviewed him many times. He does have a way to get help to families. I have received many donations from the confidential sources. I send them every time the interview has that effect. I send them to him. Sometimes he's on the other side of the island, and it's not easy, but it's the only way, right? Zoe, we can't do it any other way. Just use a trusted person, nothing more.
Thank you, Carlos. Do you know what the problem is? Those transfers have to go through the channels they want, and sometimes they don't go through, which is what this gentleman said, and it could land anyone in jail. There's just no way out anywhere. Father Alberto Reyes is the only one who is truly doing the hard behind-the-scenes work to help right now. I also send aid to Father Alberto Reyes because it's probably the only real way. Maybe it's taken a while, or maybe because there are places that are very far and hard to reach, like you just said, Alberto. In any way, they get it there, they make sure it arrives, and it's terrible. That people can't even complain. I mean, look at how Carlos had to speak up for a man who, if he says something today, not even on the street, but at his window, inside his own house, they destroy him. They ruin his life. And they ruin his life.
And let no one be mistaken, Albert. This terrible situation that the Cubans are suffering, that this beautiful country is suffering, a child of Spain, a brother to the Spanish people, it's because 4 murderous dictators want to stay in power. There is no other reason than that. What are Marco Rubio and Trump thinking? The clock can't keep ticking because people need to eat every day. And maybe you can go 3 days, 4 days, 10 days without eating. They've been living through famine for months. We have to stop the clock. We have to set Cuba's clock to 0. And today that can only be done with an immediate intervention by the United States, who were the only ones that cared about that reality at the time. This waiting period fills me with uncertainty, pain, and suspicion, and I demand that all of them be cleared up for me. Were they serious or just toying with the hunger of the Cuban people? That would be going too far.
That's what we hope for, friends. Look, while we talk about the left staying silent in the face of pain and hunger, in Cuba, a new record has just been set for subsidies to the left-wing, very communist and progressive unions of UGT and Comisiones Obreras in Spain. Pepe Alvarez and Unai Sordo. Sanchez has doubled the subsidies that Rajoy gave to these unions. And up to today, hold on tight, they have received 146 million euros of public money. Just so you get an idea, Rajoy used to give them a little over 8 million, right, per year. Sanchez, 32. That's the difference. The increase in aid to the unions is 263%. I've done the math. With your taxes, you pay Comisiones Obreras and UGT 100,000 euros every day. When they say there's no money for DANA victims, for ALS, for a medication, think about the figures we're giving. Logically, this government hasn't had a single general strike in 8 years, and it won't as long as they keep silencing people with their money. It's curious, a listener asked me, I have Jose's message here. He says, how is it possible that without a budget, in 4 terms, there's money for everything else? Unions, grandchildren's law. Where do they get the money from? What should I tell them, Carlos? Where do they get the money from?
Well, that's a legal loophole because with extended budgets, the government actually has the power to make what are called budget transfers. Without changing the extended budgets, they can take funds from one place and put them in another. But why do I have to pay such a high price? Not even €1? Not to Comisiones Obreras, not to UGT, nor to any union I'm not a member of and have absolutely no interest in. Well, with that money, just like back in the day, UGT was bailed out. When they did that real estate development where they scammed hundreds of working families through SPA, that's what it was called, that development they tried to do, right? They couldn't do it because the money disappeared as always. And what's more concerning, under what control are 146 million euros from all Spaniards given to the unions? How do they spend it? How do they distribute it? They're just well-fed cronies. What would be happening in Spain if a right-wing government had the mess that the scoundrel has? Sanchez and his gang of mobsters who occupy La Moncloa, what would be happening? The unions would be burning the streets, burning dumpsters, throwing stones at people. That's what would happen. But since it's a left-wing government and they give them 146 million, which I hope will help Yolanda Diaz when she's out on the street, in a few months they might hire her as a lawyer for the Workers' Commissions Union, which is where she should have never left. Well, at least she should be grateful for that. But in the meantime, they're robbing us right in front of our faces. They're taking money out of all our pockets to give it to that deaf guy and that scarf guy whose name I don't even know, to the shrimp guys, you know, the shrimp eaters.
And don't forget that UGT is being investigated and tried for a multi-million fraud. Just one more. They scammed 4.5 million since 2018. Maria del Carmen, Tomas Lopez, Maika, that woman you see, those breasts you see in the photograph, we have also paid for them with public money. She is an administrative worker at the UGT union. She managed the Fogasa funds without anyone's supervision. In fact, Pepe Alvarez ordered that no complaint be filed and delayed the investigation for 17 months.
Who was her mother? Who is that girl's mother?
The PSOA representative in the Madrid Assembly, Maria Carmen Lopez Ruiz. The checks didn't reach the workers. Instead, they ended up in the accounts of 3 people close to her, including her husband. In total, over 10 months, 44 checks with 465,000 euros. With the workers' money, plane tickets to Miami, Paris, Fuerteventura, and Mallorca were paid for. He paid with the UGT card. He forged 270 and 279 checks. He bought 2 Mercedes cars, as I said, got breast implants, and also used fake ink to make the checks. She wrote the real name. They gave her the check. She erased the real name and put her husband's or a friend's name instead. They're asking for 8 years in prison, which to me, I don't know, Zoe, seems like very little. It should be more severe when it's public money from an institution that receives public funds, right?
And she'll get out earlier.
Of course, for sure.
She'll get out earlier because they always manage to do their little courses, their integrations and their things, and she'll get out earlier. And besides that, what are unions good for today? But anyway, what reason do unions have to exist? That's something that should already be, as the French say, revolver, like mixed up. What is the role of unions? None, nothing. They don't do anything. What they do is bring down the worker, bring down the employee. Honestly, those things really get to me. They make my blood boil.
Well, but Alberto...
Don't stop there.
It's just that the unions, especially UGT, have a lot to do with the layoffs in Andalusia. And we're talking about hundreds of millions there, hundreds of millions. And nothing happens. And any other administration that did this, what UGT did, would be outlawed. Here it is rewarded by the government and Sanchez's mafia, which pays for social peace so that the unions don't take to the streets. Just wait until there's an alternative government and you'll see the mess these shameless people will cause in the streets.
Yes, but there is a political class in Spain, especially on the left. And sometimes when the right governs too, that seems untouchable. Look, I'm getting a message from a confidential source in Miami. Her name is Maria. She says, I can't understand how it's possible that Zapatero is given any consideration just for being a former president, when, on the contrary, he should be treated more harshly and firmly. Since having held such a cancerous position, he has trampled on everything decent and more. He should be in prison. The justice imposed by Judge Calama owes him. It must have done him a great favor. I agree it should be an aggravating factor, Zoe, when a politician commits any crime, not a mitigating one. This kind of protection for the political class, does this happen in the United States too or not?
No, this is more difficult in the United States. But anyway, of course, that's what the Democrats have been wanting to implement for a while now, right? Look, I also received a message from Cuba because they were sending me information. And I said, I can't right now because I'm with Albert Castillo. They said, Albert Castillo, that's the only thing you can watch.
Huh? How wonderful, please. The people who
don't have electricity or light, the only thing they see is Albert Castillo. And then I tell you, no, we kick him out. Look, we kick him out.
A hug from here. It's very moving to know that they have electricity for 1 hour a day and charge their phone to watch us. Even if it's just one, it's incredible.
It's incredible, and we have to be grateful for it. Look, and they thank you so much. They always tell me. What's happening in Spain, I'm sorry to say it, but I've said it before, and people always say, oh, you're exaggerating. Oh, you're crazy. That was second by second. What happened in Cuba, in Spain, it's happening at an incredible speed, because this isn't Sanchez copying the copy. I mean, Venezuela. Sanchez, his first trip was to Cuba to receive what instructions, and he came back with the idea of what he had to do: destroy Spain. The only thing the social communists can think of, as he himself defends, when he raised his fist and sang the Internationale with the corrupt one and all her corrupt circle, is to destroy and destroy. And they are going to destroy Spain at a rapid pace. And we're seeing this union issue in France as well. In France, what the unions are doing is horrific. The unions shut down television channels in France, and that's going to come quickly to Spain because that's what they want. From the very first minute, the one he made vice president, who luckily is gone now, what's his name? I don't even like to say his name. The one with the ponytail, Luis Iglesias. Luis Iglesias, that's what he wants. That's what he wanted from the very first minute. And he planted that seed there. And that's what's going to happen. It's going to happen with communications. It's going to happen now with the unions. We already know what the unions are. And what it is from social communism, and that's where they come from.
Well, I absolutely agree with you, Zoe, and it needs to be explained. This is a plan that is working out well for them. Now, for example, Sanchez is promoting, and he's not the only one, the message of plurinationality. Exactly. For what purpose? To reach, I'm told, to reach in 2031 the anniversary of the Second Republic, 100 years since the proclamation of the Second, and to proclaim the Third, and to be the leader of that republic. Carlos, here today, nobody believes this. But 8 years ago, nobody believed we would be where we are today.
Of course, Albert. I mean, things are moving so fast in Spain. The moral degradation, the institutional degradation, the loss of democratic quality that we have been suffering in Spain for the past 8 years. It coincides with the Sanchez coming to power, although Zapatero had already sown part of the misfortune during his administration, because we have to remember that this man Zapatero left Spain ruined. He lied to all of us, saying that we were in the Champions League of the European economy and we were about to be bailed out by the men in black, right? That was when he made cuts, froze pensions, and cut the salaries of public employees. But the left-wing media machinery has sugar-coated that message to the point of whitewashing Zapatero's administration, who was the most disastrous president Spanish democracy ever had until Sanchez. But since these people are specialists in whitewashing, man murderers from the ETA terrorist group, worthless murderers, have been turned into statesmen. This was even said in the Madrid state parliament. Otegi is a statesman. A terrorist guy convicted, among other things, for the kidnapping of Javier Ruiz Rupert. We're just crazy. Honestly, life is moving so fast that we're losing perspective. And we're going down the drain. It's essential to have democratic elections in Spain as soon as possible, because Sanchez is going to keep padding the voter rolls as much as he can. With the so-called grandchildren law, with legalized immigrants, with whatever it takes. And watch out, because once again, I repeat, it doesn't matter who votes. What matters is who counts the votes. And that machine is in the hands of Mr. Sanchez and his synchronized opinion team, who dress it up through the public media. We all pay for the lies, the shame, the disgrace of a government that has decided to go rogue. I don't care what happens. I'll hold on until 2027. And if I manage to get 3 million new votes in the ballot boxes, maybe I'll get lucky again.
About the Sarah vote, the grandchildren law, Rosa, Juan, and Roberto.
Are you talking about voting by mail? It should totally be banned. These people who live abroad, whether they've gone to work abroad or just live outside, even if they're Spanish, they don't have the right to vote since they're not registered residents.
Look, we're talking about electoral fraud and that the opposition is being tested. I don't think so. I think that the opposition is simply collaborating with a criminal organization to stay in power, and that they most likely have common interests.
I believe the SIRA overseas voting system is the biggest scam they're pulling. I don't get why people from another country who've never been to Spain can decide our nation's future. But now that we're here, why don't they just count the votes in the country where they're cast and send the data to Spain?
Oh, if it were like that, they wouldn't win. That's the trick, that's the catch. Look, Bernabe got his citizenship. It's confidential. Listen to how he did it.
I'm the grandson and great-grandson of Republican exiles. I was granted citizenship through the historical memory law, not the democratic memory law. It's curious that they changed the name from historical memory law, because of course the historical memory law should cover all the protagonists of history, regardless of which side they were on or what ideology they had. History is one with its events, but of course they had to call it democratic because that way only the Democrats, those who consider themselves the ones who were right according to them, the ones who named it the democratic memory law, only those are the ones who have rights. Well, it's also said that those of us in this situation and the new ones who are going to be regularized now through this super express regularization, especially for Argentinians, is meant to get them to vote for the left. Well, in my case, they've hit a wall. I don't vote because during the 15 years I was just another foreigner. I wasn't allowed to participate.
In political matters, I couldn't have an opinion, but I still had to pay taxes. The first ones who are fed up with this fake way of nationalizing people or with the Zoe grandchildren law are those who have been in Spain for 10, 15 years, and they are neither allowed to become citizens nor are they allowed to validate their degrees from other countries. Basically, they put every possible obstacle in their way. And now it turns out that for those they want to change through the census, it's a red carpet. That's not fair.
And also, I'm going to tell you something even worse. For example, to the Cubans who have fled or who have come because of persecution by a dictatorship, they delay their paperwork. And do you know why? Because they themselves have done a study. A lawyer explained this to me. They have done a study on possible voters for the PSOE, on the possible voters. So everything they're doing fraudulently regarding the granting of nationality comes from that study, the granting. So, I mean, is this really not just tragic? This is changing the course of democracy. This is pushing democracy toward the darkest side. It's sinking democracy. I don't even know what to call this anymore. And also for Cubans, not only are their papers delayed, but their legal voting status is delayed too, however, for those inside Cuba. Associations from the Canary Islands and others go pick them up at their homes. As I think I told you once, they take them to vote, they give them everything quickly. I mean, they take them to vote, they give them a little box of rice with chicken or whatever. In the end, on buses, on coaches, on buses, and then they delay their departure from the country. How curious, isn't it? They delay their departure even though they have citizenship. But what's going on here?
Yes, they're using them, taking advantage of them for the vote and not much else. Someone who lately seems to be waking up from their happy dreams. Feijó has gotten his act together. He's talking all day about the need to hold elections, seeking the support of junts. He goes from TV show to TV show with his speech. Ernesto Rosa and Fran talk about the PP.
Please, gentlemen of the opposition, be able to reach an agreement and negotiate. To present an instrumental motion of no confidence to call new elections and thus remove this government.
I just read that Feijó also doesn't want to present an instrumental motion of no confidence. Does he want to wait? I don't know. I just don't know what he wants to wait for. Well, I guess there's a year left until the elections. There's the matter of the expedited regularizations, and, well, we all know what Sanchez is capable of. Honestly, I think we're facing a national emergency, and these gentlemen just don't want to realize it. Genovac 13, he doesn't want to realize it.
Do you know why? Núñez Feijóo doesn't want an instrumental vote of no confidence that would put someone outside of the current political landscape. A neutral person, because it would take away his option to do the same thing Sanchez is doing. Take advantage of the Serra vote sacks, change them to his name, manipulate the overseas mail-in ballots. Because I just can't find any other explanation. Is it?
Has Feijóo actually stepped up, or is it just for show? Carlos, right?
I don't know if he's really stepped up or not. You know me, just like I bet, I think Sanchez will hold on until the very last second of the last day of the term. I also said Feijóo made a mistake by not filing a no-confidence motion, that it's democratically essential, pedagogically necessary, and that even Felipe González did it in 1981, if I remember correctly. He lost it in parliament, but he won it in the streets because 6 months later, he was given a huge absolute majority. It doesn't matter. We already know what can happen in parliament. But would that motion of no confidence expose PNV and Junts? And besides, people would get the sense that the opposition is actually doing something. Damn, every bit of news that comes up, it's news that comes from the media. There isn't a single proposal from a party, a discovery, a finding, uncovering corruption. No, everything comes from what's published in the media. What are you doing, sir? What are you doing? Yesterday, it seems like someone opened your eyes because on a TV show, El Hormiguero to be exact, he admitted he must form a coalition government with Vox. Hey, it didn't have to take so long to admit that. In fact, they've spent a lot of time insulting and stigmatizing Vox. In fact, some regional presidents from the PP are still doing it today when it's your only chance to form a government. You know, you don't have to be a genius, just have a bit of common sense. Well,
the one who should be analyzing this is Feijóo. I mean, with the situation we're in, and with half the government in jail and half of Sanchez's family, he still doesn't win by a majority. Why doesn't he step aside and move out of the way, seeing that he's not capable of leading the opposition? Right, Zoe? It would be logical to think that one should do some self-criticism. Is it what's best for my party or not, or is it just what's best for me?
That would be logical, but we're not dealing with logical people. Realize that this man, because look, yesterday I had today there was a vote for the European Union to withdraw aid to Cuba. And the Popular Party, as always, voted in favor of the aid. For this to continue, but in a different way, look at what they did. Vox makes a proposal, Herman Terch makes it, they copy Vox's opposition proposal, they take it as their own and present it as if it were theirs. But when it's time to vote, they vote the opposite. So yesterday I had an argument with someone here from the Popular Party because he wanted to read to me what they published. I told him, yes, they copied it from Vox, but tomorrow they're probably going to vote the opposite. And that's exactly what they did. But he also tells me, no, because look at everything Aznar did, but we're not in Aznar's era anymore because of the opposition. We're in Feijóo's era, who went to Cuba 3 times, who met with Raúl Castro. If you search on Google for Feijóo 2016 Cuba, you'll see how he's going to vote.
We're seeing those images. We're looking at those images.
You mean Galicia in Spain? Yes, and accompanying.
Sí.
And everything we already know, I mean, something that I, even on numerous occasions yesterday with the show, I played it again. Let's see if you're going to say it on El Hormiguero and clarify what happened in 2016. You didn't do it. What?
Unbelievable, please. Well, and today, Teresa Peramato today, Friday, appears before the Justice Commission to explain Lere's 5 visits to the State Attorney General's office. She was with the right-hand man of the indicted and convicted prosecutor Alvaro Garcia Ortiz. All of them took place between March and May of 2025. We're really fed up with being taken for fools. And every time Sanchez says, I've never seen Lere in my life, I don't know her. Well, here we show you pictures of them together. You're going to see 6 videos, 6 of Lere and Sanchez together, sometimes talking. Watch them all. They're videos of public events, on the air during election campaigns. Is Lere always next to Sanchez? But are there videos from 2018 and 2020 going back to 2014 or 2015? That is when he took the 5 days to reflect. Keep watching the footage because there are many from when he took those 5 days. They went to look for someone at the sewer worker's house they trusted, and Lera had been there for years. 15 years, 10 years doing whatever services were needed, and that's why they used Lera Diaz. At the same time, Carlos speaks very poorly of Santos, Cerdan, and Sanchez's ability to find a sewer worker. It's a terrible sewer. It's sloppy. It's shabby. They recorded her. They photographed her. She has to be the worst spy, right?
But what surprises you, Santos Cerdan? Are you talking about the one who used to do air conditioning maintenance? What education does he have? What qualifications does he have? What kind of culture does he have? Well, of course, if you put an orangutan at the wheel of a bus, it's very likely the bus will go off a hill. Of course, it's a gang of mediocres, of illiterates, of intellectual beggars, and from there you can't build anything because they don't have the ability. Now, a long time ago, Felipe Gonzalez even said that he didn't believe Zapatero could have orchestrated this corrupt business mafia because he didn't see him as capable of doing it. Of course, an idiot who gets his daughters involved in setting up a company to divert commissions and therefore gets them into a major criminal problem. Because look, even if he could lie and save himself with the jewelry issue, the daughters won't be able to prove that they got a ridiculous amount of money for formatting some reports for their dad, which, by the way, he said he did verbally. Maybe they did orthodontics because I don't know how you can format a verbal report. But in any case, these are the people the Socialist Party has. Damn. And when you go hand in hand with ignorant, unprepared people, the furthest thing from statesmen, this is what can happen. The smear machine that lives in Moncloa only has one option: to splash and splash and splash even more in the mud, because outside the mud, they have no real argument. They don't have the intellectual level to debate with anyone. They have no proposals. They are stuck in blatant lies, in constant posturing. And this is what Spain can't stand anymore.
About Zapatero, is he a socialist, Mud Socialist Party? What Mud Socialist, JMB and Carmen?
The timelines for holding trials in the United States are not the same as those in Spanish courts. So, is Trump going to wait for the trial for the charges against Rodriguez Zapatero to be held in Spain? I estimate that it will take at least 6 to 8 years. How many years will pass before it comes under the jurisdiction of the United States?
And what about the jewelry in Zapatero's office, Zapatero? I have a feeling that when he tried to run away with his wife and daughters to the Dominican Republic, he had previously taken the jewelry to the office so that later someone from his party could take care of transporting that jewelry to wherever he was.
I think the judge should have put him in jail without bail. Why? Because if that happened to me or to any other ordinary Spaniard, we wouldn't be out on the street. And before the law, they should set an example, like, for example, with Zapatero.
Zapatero's jewels won't come from exchanging raw gold from his mine, since he says he doesn't have one. And besides, they're easier to handle than gold.
I know that Zapatero's jewels are the most precious symbol, but trust me, the big stuff hasn't come out yet. And the big stuff is the oil tankers from Venezuela. 2.5 million in commission for each ship. In commission. And UDEF believes that Zapatero was taking 25%. The one who decided which ship went to whom was Delcy Rodriguez. Zapatero was the one who organized the distribution, for example, to the Chinese. That's why the real jewelry is a detail that they will probably end up falsifying in any document. The big stuff hasn't come out. Yes or no, Carlos?
True, absolutely true. And that's where the business is. About the jewelry, let's see, we have to remember that Al Capone was arrested and put in jail because of some tax papers for some poorly done accounts. It doesn't matter how you catch him, you have to catch him. Because once you get him for the first thing, this is going to fall like a house of cards. I'm not defending Dama. Dama did what he did and took part in what he took part in. But I asked the court that is judging him to sentence him to no more than 2 years and let him go free. so that Julito Martinez and Lere herself, this one, can see that they can save their own skin. Because otherwise, Julito Martinez is going to get 15 or 20 years behind bars. And the shameless Zapatero, who testified in court the day before yesterday, blamed, quote unquote, his own secretary, that Gertrude woman, who didn't have the courage to tell the judge, Your Honor, leave this lady alone. She followed my orders at all times. What does a boss do with a secretary he's had for 40 years, someone he completely trusts? And Julito Martinez went from saying he was my friend, come on. He's leaving them stranded. They need to wake up. But to reinforce that situation, it would be great if Aldama, who I repeat is not exactly my favorite person, came out victorious from this legal ordeal.
By the way, look at how they're chasing Gertrudis Alcazar, Zapatero's secretary, down the street.
Did Pedro Sanchez know anything about what was happening in that office? Did anyone from the PSOE?
What matters to the Spanish people?
Where is the money?
Have you spoken with former President Zapatero? No.
Have you been involved in the creation of a company in Dubai? So did the PSOE, but specifically Pedro Sanchez, know anything about what was happening there?
She's under investigation. She knows a lot, and we hope she tells the judge. There's no need for a journalist to do it. But this thing about going to a judge and the boss saying, I don't know anything, that's Gertrudis, that's the subordinate. I've seen this happen several times, Carlos. On television, they used to file complaints against us, and we would go to court, and there was always someone who took responsibility on the show. And the first thing they would say is, I just read what they write for me. I don't know anything. I just read what they write for me. And pardon my language, they would leave the mess for the rest of us. So I've experienced this several times. The last time wasn't that long ago. Well, my dear Zoe Valdez, put the finishing touch. Put an end to this conversation. Go ahead, tell Marco Rubio what you think. He'll see us.
I've already told him in that article in Diario Las Americas, but what I have to say to Marco Rubio is don't make us a cardboard Cuba again. And I'm going to say something that, many Cubans are against, but I've been emphasizing it. I believe that Cuba's destiny has to go back to what it was before the Treaty of Paris. I believe that Cuba has to reintegrate with Europe. It's European. It has to become Spanish again. I'm not saying that Spain has to save us. That's not what I'm saying. Our language is Spanish. Those wet dreams of annexation to the biggest traitor we've ever had in our history, this one right here, Marco Rubio, I can't take it anymore. They betrayed us with Brigade 2506. They betrayed us with the 7 years of anti-Castro guerrilla warfare in the Escambre included children fighting for Cuba's freedom. And they have always betrayed us. So, Marco Rubio, you are Cuban. Please understand this message.
Dear Zoe Valdez, it's an honor to have you here. Thank you, my friend.
The honor is mine to be with you. Thank you always. Thank you. Thank you.
Dear Carlos Marcos, thank you, my friend. Hugs.
A hug, Albert, but you cut me off and I messed up.
Come on, with the period at the end, otherwise you'll get mad and I don't want that.
Well, I'm saying goodbye, Albert, but not without mentioning a lady who wants to be the president of the Valencians. Watch out, Valencia. Be careful with what you do. A mentally retarded person, a scatterbrain, but a scatterbrain with a delay. An intellectually destitute person like Diana Moran has tried to justify the judicial action against Rodriguez Zapatero. In an American conspiracy in which President Trump ordered a phone to be tapped 5 years ago by a guy who is on the run from justice. Because now, right now, when Sanchez says no to war and stands up to Trump, then the conspiracy, that is, Trump called Judge Calama to tell him, hey, go after this Rodriguez, she's crazy. Valenciano, please vote for anyone but this crazy woman. She'll lead you to disaster, for God's sake.
Well, she's the candidate. She's the candidate, the one chosen by Sanchez. Well,
he's expecting major success. We'll share it together.
Of course. A big hug. Thank you always for your company. Goodbye, my friend. We're heading to the newsroom. Final messages. Greetings from the team. Susana Gascola.
Greetings from the Cassion Confidential Newsroom, where we're receiving, as always, those messages and opinions from our insiders. Carmen says, who says she repeated it many times at home, that Judge Calama was going to protect him, obviously referring to Zapatero. Justice in Spain is just another cesspool of the state, except for a few honorable exceptions. Antonio also says that Venezuela and Spain have similar governments. Karim says that the fact that Zapatero is being left free smells pretty bad to him, that not even holding on to his passport, this is normal. They don't think he could flee. Monsieur Paloma says that it's going to be like with Puyol, that they got away scot-free. They're real shameless people. Tomas says that Venezuelans and Cubans should gather all the information they can and bring all of them, especially Zapatero, Monedero, and all these people, to the Human Rights Court for crimes against humanity. Cristina argues we must change the culture, constitution, and penal code for justice in Spain. Otherwise, progress won't be possible. Mami says that it's not dissociation, it's psychopathy, to put it politely, pure and simple, all cut from the same cloth. And the last one, Albert Emiliano, writes to us from Toledo. He says, Mr. Castellon, all my respect and admiration for you and your entire team. I know that telling the truth and doing it with the clarity that you do can bring you a lot of problems. That's precisely why your work is so valuable to us. Thank you for your courage, for not staying silent, and for helping so many listeners understand a reality that many try to hide. Sometimes it seems like there is no solution because everyone plays the same game, but hearing voices like yours makes you lose yourself in it and gives you hope. Thank you for moving forward and for doing journalism that many of us value but also need. We'll leave it here, Albert, with those beautiful words from our insider, and you can follow us on all our social networks and also on our channels. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Susana, and those magnificent words that give us encouragement and motivation to keep going. Look, there are people who want to forget these things, and here we insist on remembering them. Today marks 39 years since the worst massacre committed by the terrorist group ETA. And it happened in my neighborhood where I lived back then, in New Barris, Sant Andreu, in Barcelona, at Hypercore. That Friday afternoon, because it was a Friday just like today, the bomb exploded. Do you know what I did? I called my sister and my mother because they used to shop there a lot and asked if they were there shopping. Luckily, they didn't go that afternoon. Maybe that was it. Maybe it saved their lives. 21 dead boys, girls, men, women, fathers, grandparents, workers, everyone. It's a working class neighborhood in Barcelona, nothing more than that. Today, 39 years ago, at 6:30 in the afternoon, there is an event at the monument for the victims of Hypercore, which, like all monuments to the victims of ETA, is very discreet. So it's less visible and doesn't bother anyone. Jose Vargas is my friend, and he is the president of the Catalan Association of Victims of Terrorist Organizations.
Hello, Albert. This Friday in the afternoon at 6:30 p.m. at the Monument to the Victims of Terrorism in Barcelona on Meridiana Avenue. With Fabre, Fabri Puig, and Rio de Janeiro, we will hold, as we do every year, the tribute to the victims of Hypercore and to all the victims of terrorism. Unfortunately, the Catalan institutions such as the City Council, the Generalitat, and the Parliament of Catalonia don't know. And even though I have reminded them many times, they don't know that in 1987 there was a very serious attack here in Barcelona. We don't know why the Catalan institutions don't want to know anything about the victims of terrorism. I feel very envious when I travel to other autonomous communities and see that the institutions and regional governments fully support the victims of terrorism. I hope the tables will turn here someday. Thank you, Albert, for listening to me.
Thank you, Jose, for your message. It's terrible. Nobody wants to remember this there. Why? Because they are their colleagues, their allies. Because the heirs of those who killed in Hypercore and planted the bomb are the partners of their governments, of Salvador Salvadorilla, the close friends or inner circle of Junqueras, of Puigdemont. Therefore, well, yes, I've even heard them say, well, we warned El Corte Inglés and told them there was a bomb and they didn't evacuate, as if saying it's their fault. For the victims, we do not forget, and most Catalans and people from Barcelona don't either. There's more in a minute.
You're listening to Castillon Confidential.
The price of gold is hitting record highs. Those pieces of jewelry you no longer wear could solve many of your financial problems. But how do you know where to go? Javier Peno is confidential and has been buying sparkling jewelry, gold, and top watch brands like Cartier from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s for 36 years. And he always offers the highest appraisal. He has 6 stores in Cadiz, and the main one is in Madrid at 7 Arenal Street. Don't get confused. Number 7 brings good luck. It's on the first floor right next to Puerta del Sol, and they do not close at midday. No one is going to pay you more. If you want to talk to Javier, call him on our behalf at 91 593 0491 593 0491 593 9,159,304.91. Completely trustworthy. Trustworthy. Exoc.
Gentlemen, you know what? On Fridays, we look for heroes. There are so many heroes in Spain and in Hispanic countries that it's hard to choose. We try to focus on those who are less known or perhaps forgotten by history. People who have accomplished incredible feats whose blood we carry runs through our veins. And most people have forgotten him. Today, get ready because we're talking about El Sansón Español. That's right, El Sansón Español. Paco Alvarez, welcome. How are you doing, my friend?
Well, I'm delighted to be here with you and with the Confidenciales for another Friday, talking about our heroes. Something will end up rubbing off on us from talking about such wonderful people.
Garcia de Paredes, tell me who the Spanish Samson was.
Well, I'm going to have to check my notes to tell you everything this man was. But anyway, to sum up, if the great captain is the most important general of the Renaissance, then Don Diego Garcia de Paredes is the most important soldier of the Renaissance. He was a giant. They say he was over 2 meters tall, and he would weigh well over 120 kilos if we could weigh him now. He was a huge guy, but he was also very cultured and very wise. For example, he was a Spanish captain in the Italian Wars, North Africa, and Navarre. Captain of the personal guard of Pope Alexander VI, condottiero for the Duke of Urbino and the Colonna family. Colonel of Spanish infantry under the command of the great captain during the conquest of Naples, crusader for Cardinal Cisneros, field marshal for Emperor Maximilian III, Colonel of the Holy League, Knight of the Golden Fleece of Charles the Race. In other words, I keep going and going. Well,
it's incredible. An epic hero who fought in 1,000 battles, right?
In all of them.
Parts? Soldier? Did he never get past being a soldier?
No, yes, he was a colonel and all that. But what I mean is that he was a soldier in the sense that he fought. I mean, staying back and just watching, no. He went to the front line, as we'll see, every chance he got, and sometimes even more than that. In fact, he was also very famous for having more than 300 duels, many of which he didn't even have to fight. Because when they saw who they were up against, the other person would just say, all right, fine. No, I give up.
We're talking, gentlemen, about a hero who never lost and who was born in Cáceres, right?
That's right. In Trujillo, in Cáceres, in 1468. He was the son of a nobleman, and from a very young age, he trained both in arms and in letters. He admired the Romans a lot, of course, and his favorite reading was Julius Caesar's commentaries on the Gallic War. And in fact, he always said that he wished he would have time to write his memoirs when he was older. And he did write them basically so that his son would know what kind of father he had. But anyway, well, it's absolutely incredible. The fact is, he was always an adventurer ever since he was a child, a young boy. He was in the Wars of Granada. And in 1497, we already find him, well, being the Pope's bodyguard in Rome. I mean, he said, I'm going over there to look for adventure. And then he joined the army of the great captain to conquer Naples.
And that's where it started. That was his first great feat, Naples.
No, well, actually, even farther in Cephalonia, in Greece. In the capture of Cephalonia, they were in Greece. The Spaniards went to take this city it belonged to the Turks. And well, it was a war, a terrible siege. Because among other things, the Turks had a kind of hook, they called them wolves. It was like a hook that would grab the fighters by their armor, the Christian fighters. And they would pull them inside the wall where, well, they were captured, and that was it. And in one of these, they caught Don Diego Garcia de Paredes. They should never have done that. They grabbed him with the hook and took him up to the top of the walls. And they said, that's it, we've got him prisoner. But he grabbed onto the hook and started swinging blows from side to side. And he was, the Turks say, fighting for 3 days straight, fighting and killing anyone who came near him until he finally got tired. And then, well, he lowered his sword when he got tired after 3 days. And then they took him prisoner, saying, well, with this one, we're going to get a great ransom. His rescue came when the Christians went to take the city. He heard it from inside his cell, broke down the door, and killed his guards. And, well, he helped conquer the city from the inside. And this was one of the first things he did.
But he was a man with brutal strength. And besides, he loved battle. He would patiently calculate the right moment, pretending to be weaker than he was. He was a mastermind.
He was incredible. Come on, I mean, it's terrible that everyone knows Rambo, and Garcia de Paredes at most just sounds like a street name to us, right? Well, it's this man, I insist, the most famous soldier of the Renaissance, but not just in Spain, in the world. I mean, in the battles of Cerignola, and especially in Garigliano, in Italy. Well, in Garigliano, it was amazing because, I mean, he was, let's say, part of the council of the great captain. And then he told the great captain, we should do this. The great captain said, no, we're going to do this other thing. And then Garcia de Paredes got angry. And of course, since he was angry, he grabbed a montante. A montante is a sword about as tall as I am. There are some in the Naval Museum. There's one, for example, a sword about 2 meters long that weighs, I don't know, 20 kilos. He grabbed this sword and went to a bridge that was at the front line at the narrowest point, armed only with this montante. And he started swinging with both hands again and again against the French until, well, I mean, what I'm trying to say is to the point. Look, Perez del Pulgar, a chronicler of the time, says, with the two-handed sword he had, he got in among them. And fighting like a brave lion, he began to perform such feats that no one ever did greater ones in his time. Not Hector, nor Julius Caesar, nor Alexander the Great, nor any other ancient brave captains. He truly seemed like another Horatius in his courage, and boldness. With a two-handed sword that I can barely lift. And he, just like that.
Hey, but this man, Don Diego Garcia de Paredes, is the kind of man they should be making movies and series about all over the place. Has there been any that you know of?
As far as I know, no. As far as I know, no. And if there is, I don't know about it. But, well, of course, I insist. It's what we always say. To make stories about our own heroes so that our children feel proud and play at being Diego Garcia de Paredes, right? It's much better than playing cowboys, isn't it? Or pirates or other terrible things.
Alcine, how much is there to do? And here we're always filming Civil War movies from the same side.
And from the same side, yes, yes. Look, there was a time when, of course, because we're in the Renaissance, it was an era of knights and France and Spain were at war. But they said, well, let's have a tournament while we get organized. Let's have a tournament. And 11 French knights faced off against 11 Spanish knights. He wasn't selected at first due to injury, but insisted, no, I'm going to the tournament. Well, after a day, a French knight had been captured and another was injured. And a Spanish knight had also been captured. And the French took cover behind their horses, which had already died. And then, well, the impartial judges, the clergy declared, well, come on, speak up, right? You ended up tied. But our friend Diego didn't agree with it. He had a broken lance. He didn't have a sword anymore. So what did he do? Well, he started pulling stones from the fence that surrounded the area and throwing them, and he threw them at the French. To the point that the French, seeing that huge rocks were falling on them, abandoned the field, and he said, that's it, we've won. So, hey.
Hey, what a character, really, what a character. Well, I hope he has a monument in Trujillo.
Yes, 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 of course. In Trujillo, he has his monument and his tomb is also greatly honored. And well, he also has streets, of course, in Trujillo, obviously in Madrid, as we know, and in more places. Although I think his greatest monument is what Charles the Vice said about him, no more and no less, even Cervantes. Charles the Vice said, Juan, your illustrious deeds that you have accomplished with your great courage, both in Spain and in Italy, showing yourself in all the battles and skirmishes you have attended. A terror and amazement to your enemies and a protection and defense for our own. That is what Emperor Charles said. And Cervantes also made him immortal because he mentions him in Don Quixote. And he says literally, Lusitania had a Viriatus from Turbulus, Rome had a Caesar, Carthage had a Hannibal, Greece had an Alexander, Castile had a Count Fernan Gonzalez, Valencia had a Cid, Andalusia had a Gonzalo Fernandez, and Extremadura had a Diego Garcia de Paredes. To him, bravo. What more can be said?
Because the kings would have gotten angry. I mean, for a common soldier who became a colonel to be the greatest hero in history for centuries, that really upsets monarchies. You know how it is.
Totally, totally. Look, after fighting in 200,000 battles, our hero fell off his horse in 1533, got a bad wound, and died from that, from a bad fall. Instead, no one was ever able to defeat him, neither in a duel nor on the battlefield. He fought in 15 pitched battles, 17 sieges, and is not known, about 300 duels. He was truly the wonder and terror of his enemies, and the best friend of de los nuestros.
Gentlemen, today he is a true hero, Don Diego Garcia de Paredes, and thank you, Paco, for reminding us. Oh, thank God for you all. And a hug, I follow you on your channel, Historias Confidenciales. A hug, my friend.
A hug, my friends.
Friends, we always have to thank the people who are pushing forward because it's not easy to open up shop every day as self-employed people, right? Thank you, Michelle. A hug, Alberto.
And the whole team, thank you so much for the priceless work you do every day. God bless you. Thank you.
Wonderful. I love it when people say, God bless you to me. Well, I keep getting messages that the program cuts off, that it goes back, that you leave home and it doesn't work. We have filed a complaint with YouTube so they can improve whatever needs to be improved. And I ask you for patience. I ask you for patience. More Toy Story. I want you to watch it. The PSOE would be like a children's game, right? A lot of people have sent me this. Many of you, especially Anna, who was the first one. Watch. They've been wrecked, but all dressed up. Mercedes Gonzalez, the prosecutor, they're all here. Leire, Zapatero's daughters with the song You've Got a Friend in Me. Puente, Dao, Salazar, Montero all show up. Well. And they almost end up kissing. No, not Begoña, no, Zapatero and Sanchez. I liked it. And also an AI of Mohammed VI, which you're going to love, and Jose Carlos sent it to me. Thank you.
Hey Pedro, have you already made sure the coasts are left unprotected? I have more prisoners than amnesty. Of course. Hi Mohammed. Yes, don't worry, Marlaska is doing a great job. Sorry Mohammed, but you caught me a bit busy. Hello Pedro, you have to send money for speedboats.
I'm not calling him Mohammed, I'm calling him Majesty.
Again? But I already gave you money for the trains. All right, I'll send it to you now.
What does she do? Always kneeling with Mohammed VI. I really liked it. Check it out on social media. Well, and Marta asked us a very relevant question. Listen.
Yesterday, I read the news that they have given the green light to fine people for the noise of the washing machine, with the excuse that since in the summer we have the windows open, the noise from the washing machine comes through the windows and bothers the neighbors. Can you explain to me if this measure is a blow to the wallets of the rich or the poor? Because as far as I know, no rich person lives in a regular apartment like the rest of us do. They comment on those who give to them.
You hit the nail on the head, Marta. It's a blow to the pockets of those who aren't in the party, meaning the poor. As for the PSOE, they're not poor at all. Look, fines of up to 3,000 euros, 3,000 for neighbors because of the noise made by the washing machine or for having it on a balcony or terrace. That's what they call the noise law. Running the spin cycle, for example, in the middle of the night can get you fined if a neighbor reports you. This is the same regulation that's connected, as we mentioned the other day, to installing an air conditioner on the facade. They care very little about aesthetics. They do this just to collect money. Can't you see they're stealing left and right? They need to steal even more before they leave, or to manipulate the election results and never leave. And the last one for today, Rosa, about Yamil Lamal and the boots with the flag that he wore at the World Cup, the flag of Morocco and the Dominican Republic. If he went out...
Piqué wore the Catalan flag and we criticized him on the national team. How are we not going to criticize Yamin Yamal and his troublemaking father?
I don't like it when they're only with the Spanish flag to get paid, but then they send other flags. A World Cup player is a representative of a country. It's not the same thing. So let's put down those little flags, because one day this guy comes out with the Palestinian one, which he already waved quite a bit in Barcelona. Well, and to finish, a lot of people have sent this to me. Freud Lannister, Lere Diaz. Knock on the door.
Who is it?
Hello, I'm nobody, and I have nothing to do with the PSOE.
We didn't expect you. What's up?
No, it's Sandro, not this one.
It's the money I don't give you to finance the mess we haven't set up. Xantos, sir.
This is not the money I don't give you to finance the mess we haven't set up.
And here you have the information I haven't gathered, so you can't blackmail judges and prosecutors, okay?
No, thank you. Hello.
I'm meeting the director, but she says she doesn't know.
She doesn't know what you mean, and isn't meeting you at the bar across the street in 15 minutes.
Tell her I won't be waiting for her, thank you.
I've nearly finished deworming Gutancito.
Don't move.
Hello, stranger.
What the hell? Here we go again with your buddies and your girls, Pedro. I already told you I didn't want to see them at breakfast. My father always said you were a good-for-nothing and a slacker.
Can you repeat that, Begonia? I'm not sure it recorded right.
I don't know who you are, but be in my office in 10 minutes, Lara.
And it's always like this. They take us for fools, don't they? Well, no, not here. At least not here. Here we're wide awake. Thanks for staying with us on the trench, friends. Get ready, because I think tomorrow we'll release a special that you're going to love. If everything goes well with Eduardo Garcia Serrano, with the journalist and writer friend, if he allows me tomorrow, even though it's Saturday, we'll talk with him and chat about what we can do from now on as Spanish civil society. Look, let the parties fight their own battles, but civil society must organize itself. More tomorrow, even though it's Saturday. Hugs to all.
Tú lo sabes y yo lo sé. Somos confidenciales. Tú eres confidencial. Yo soy confidencial. Todos confidenciales. Todos confidenciales. Pero solo para mentes abiertas y para gente despierta. Desde la trinchera las balas silban y no hay manera de salir allá afuera. Aquí la libertad tiene las alas de cera. Albert Castillo, Susana Gash, Tucci Castillo y demás, muchas gracias. Skitskadelidu, badadelidu, con esto y un bizcocho, hasta mañana a las 8.
Castillón Confidencial by Albert Castillón.